We're talking today about the updates to DFdiscover version 5.7.0. So we're excited to share with you the changes that you'll see in DFdiscover. I am Laura Joldersma. I'm product manager at DFnet, and I'm joined today by Tinashe, Carolyn, and Busi to share all the updates with you. So before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. So if you do have any questions, feel free to use the chat at any time or share any feedbacks, add comments, and we will have time for Q&A at the end after the presentations. We are recording this webinar, so you will get a link to the recording after the email, after the webinar, as long as you registered. And you can watch previous webinars on our website under the Knowledge Hub. And in case you haven't heard already, we've recently released the DFnet Academy, which includes training videos for DF Explorer and more, and that's available under my account. So that's a new resource we've added more recently. So before we get into the actual changes that we've made to DFdiscover, let's take a kind of a quick bird's eye view of the software. So as a clinical data management system, some of the key features that DFdiscover includes is flexible data capture, a lot of options to customize your data, a lot of powerful data validation tools, including a powerful edit check language and visit scheduling support to make sure you can get your data clean quickly and lock that database faster. And we really focus on security, reliability, and regulatory compliance. DFdiscover includes a lot of different components that all work together to support various different modes of data collection and types of activities within the clinical data management ecosystem. So the server and the API shown on the left-hand side, they serve as a foundation for all of the different tools so that data can be shared very easily between all of the applications. And the API also provides the ability to integrate with any external systems such as eConsent. Some of the more recent additions to our product lineup are DF Engage, our ePro mobile application for study participants, and DF Sources, which is a mobile app for source document submission, which allows you to redact and certify source documents for submission to the database for remote monitoring and study adjudication. In the latest version of DFdiscover, we haven't updated everything, but I've highlighted here what we have updated in version 5.7.0. So we've made updates to the server and the API, as well as DF Web and DF Collect, as well as our desktop apps for data management, for setup, and for administration, as well as our ATK. And we've also updated the DF Export command line program. I'm going to give you a quick look at some of the new features in version 5.7 before we get into more details. We've added single sign-on with Microsoft and DF Web. We've added support for multi-language eCRFs in DF Explorer and DF Collect, along with new eCRF design options. We've added a dashboard to both DF Web and DF Collect. And we have a new look now for the DFdiscover standard reports. We started development for 5.7 back in February after we released 5.6. We shared the pre-release version with a few of you in early September and released at the end of September. And when you install the different tools, you'll find that the build dates for most of the applications is the 20th of September, but DF Collect specifically has a build date of the 18th of September. So we're going to go over all the highlights by the different product types. So we're going to start off with DF Web. Tinashe will take us through those changes. Busi will take us through the DF Collect changes, and then Carolyn will share with us the new features we've added to both the desktop apps and the server. So now I'll turn it over to Tinashe to start off with DF Web.
Hi, everyone. For those who haven't yet had the chance to try out DF Web, let me quickly introduce it to you. DF Web is a web application that allows the site staff to enter and review data, resolve queries, and view study reports. To use DF Web, no installation is required. Any web browser that comes with your device would be sufficient to access DF Web. This brings about quite a number of benefits, such as a reduction in admin and IT burden on installations, faster onboarding, and updates can also be done automatically. Please note that you won't need to configure anything on a study to access it on DFweb. Next slide, please. Okay, on this release, we have added single sign-on with Microsoft. Please note to use this feature, it has to be enabled per DFdiscover server. The user's Microsoft account needs to be linked to the DFdiscover user account. Okay. What you notice is when you use Microsoft Authentication, during that session, any other task that needs a DF password or signatures will use Microsoft Authentication. You will notice that some things are still similar, whether you're logging in with Microsoft or you're using the regular DFdiscover credentials. Account security requirements followed are those from Microsoft, like two-factor authentication, password complexity, and account lockouts. When you log in with Microsoft, subsequent actions that require passwords, you ask for Microsoft Authentication. You can accept similarities like a DFdiscover account is always required, such that we can use the username, full name for audit trails and for the profile section. Next slide, please. From this illustration, you can actually see this user is using the regular credentials. You can tell by the mention that the password expires in 58 days, and they also have the ability to change their password. Next slide. This is the very same user using the same account, but now they've logged in using Microsoft. You can see that there's no longer the ability for them to change their password, and also their password is no longer expiring. The benefit of doing this is you won't have headaches of managing accounts and trying to remember passwords all over the place. All of it is now being done on the Microsoft side of things. Next slide, please. In this release, we have also added a dashboard. If you look on the sidebar, it's the first link. That's the one you use if you want to access the dashboard. This dashboard will give you an overview of key information and data that is relevant to your study. This gives you metrics, statistics, and insights all in one place. In the first tab, you can see that there's an overview of subjects and eCRFs. On the next one, we have an overview of queries where they are subdivided into outstanding queries, missing queries, and completed ones. The third tile is the subject summary. This was the latest and next visits information, the days overdue, and outstanding queries by subject. The next tile has got the query and data metrics. You can view at a glance the statistics, the key performance indicators for the queries. On the last tile, you can see there's a study help. If your study contains any help information, it will be displayed in this tile. Please note that this tile supports HTML, and if you don't have any study help, it won't appear at all. At the very top, we have options for filter by site and refresh. For those who have multiple sites, they can actually filter down to one site and have a look of the dashboard, which is only applicable to that site. Normally, the dashboard refreshes every 30 minutes, but if you expect any changes in between those 30 minutes, you can do a forced refresh with the refresh button. Next slide, please. The first three tiles are fully interactive. As you can see, if you click on the subject overview, it gets you to the query overview that takes you directly to the place on the subject binder. You can also see that if you go to the subject summary, you can actually click on the days overdue, and it takes you to the subject schedule information, which takes you to the visit schedule. Next slide, please. Okay, on this page, you can see that on the subject summary, there is also a column for the queries overview, denoted by the query icon similar to that on the sidebar. If you click on it, it takes you to the list of outstanding queries for that particular subject. And when you select one of them, it takes you to the exact field that is the query so that you can action it. Next slide, please. On the query details page, we have added the ability to filter and sort queries by age. As you can see, from the previous version, the age column was not even there. So we've also added the new age column so that you can see how old your queries are, and you can also sort them from the latest to the oldest. We have also updated the timing column to give you more information on who created and modified it and their timestamps. If you open the filter dialog, you will see that we've also added the ability to filter by the subject ID. At the very bottom, you can see on the timing, we've also added the ability for you to fine-tune the range of the query age by using the timing from, you can select from a certain day to another day so that you can have queries that are limited to that time period only. Next, please. Okay, on the query list page, we have added the ability for you to download the queries. For now, you can download them as an Excel file or as a CSV file. You can see the illustration at the bottom there. That is an example of a download of the queries. This downloaded file contains the filtered queries list if you had filtered in the previous stage. Next slide, please. Okay, on the subject binder, if you scroll to the very bottom, you notice that we have added the option for you to add new visits. If visits are not already showing in the visit schedule, please note that when you go to setup, visits that are added that show up in the dialog to add new visits are the ones that are specified with the tilde, not the ones that are specified in the with a dash. Next slide, please. For our users who use devices with smaller screens and tablets, we have added the ability with that button, that blue button, to collapse the sidebar to give you more real estate on your screen so that you can see your plate more clearly. If you want to bring back the sidebar, you just click the same button. It is toggleable. Now it becomes an expand button. Next button, please. We've just updated the serif menu icon from the 3 bars to those 3 dots. Just to note, if you enabled on the settings to use subject alias, you can also see them on your reports. Above all, we have improved the overall appearance of DFweb and fixed minor interface and bug fixes, and improved the overall stability and performance of DFweb web application. I'll pass you now on to Boost for DFCollect.
Thank you, Tinashe. Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. I will give you updates on DFCollect, which is our tablet. Okay, this is our online and offline data collection tool via a tablet. It is used for data entry and modification, source document attachment, and also now query resolutions and task listings. What is new on DFCollect is the dashboard for study and site overview. DFCollect can be accessed on Android and also on iOS, iPad OS via an app store. Again, there's no separate configuration for DFCollect. It is part of the setup for the whole study. Next slide, please. So when you're working online, you will need to download subject data to the device that you are working on. And while you are online, you can enter and modify subject data and also add and resolve queries and then attach documents. Once that is done, when you are back online, you can sync back the updated data with the server. So DFCollect now has a dashboard. I think it's important to note that the dashboard is only available when you're working online. The dashboard has a current site and all site overview. So for instance, if you do have access to all sites, you'll be able to toggle with that button, an arrow button, and then choose the sites, or you can view all sites. And also you can be able to view the dashboard by subject and or by site page. So as you can see there on the left-hand side, on the pie charts, you are able to see an overview of subjects and CRFs. So you will have an overview of the status of the subjects and the status of the CRFs. And also you will also have the overview of all queries. So on the right-hand side, you will see that there is a report for outstanding queries by type. So they are categorized by data queries, missing pages, and overdue visits. And then below that, we've got subject summary. Subject summary will show you the latest and the next visit dates for your subjects, and the days overdue, and any outstanding queries by subjects. And below that, we've added a data entry and query metrics. So here you'll be able to have an overview of your data entry queries and the query data entry metrics. And then the final tile, which is just showing here, it will have the study help. And this is only available when you have programmed some information help for the study. Next slide. So DF Collect now also allows multi-language. As you can see, we've got 2 languages displaying now. Next slide. So how to set up and also how to access it, you will go to your preferences, and then you go to settings control, which now you'll be able to go to CRF language and choose the language whereby you want the CRF to show in. And then you can be able, so it is defined on your edit checks, so you can be able to access it if you have defined and programmed it. You will use the edit check to set the language using the DFpref function. We also have added a restore and save data. This is very useful just to minimize the data loss when you are auto log out, especially when you are on capturing your data using direct data capture and eSource. So how it works is once you are auto log out and you have unsaved changes, and then when you next log in, you will see this particular window, which will ask you, it will inform you that you've got unsaved work, and then it will ask you if you want to discard it. And then if you choose to discard it, it will be deleted and you cannot undo it. And then if you choose to open, it will take you to your unsaved work, and then you can decide whether to keep on updating it or save it. Next slide. We also have enhanced multimedia support within DF Collect. So audio files and video files are now supported, and they are supported within the study, plate, and field help fields. And it's only available online when referenced via URL. And when you're offline, you can use base 64 multimedia and also consider the file size limits. Audio files that are attached to the CRFs can now be played in Manage Documents screen on your right-hand side. Next slide. We also enhance field instructions, as we know that previously instructions only appeared above the prompt or above the data field. And now, as you can see on our screen here, the instructions can appear below prompt or below field or field right or below the data field. So you can now be able to determine where you want to see your instructions on your eCRF. Next slide. We also considered a show more button for long labels. So if you are using a tablet with a smaller screen, and now you are able to see a show more button in order for you to be able to read the whole label. So now you will see if the label is longer, you will see that you will have a blue arrow, which means that you can read the full text if you click on it, and then the full text will be showing so that you can be able to read the whole label. Next slide. Additional updates that we have is now that you can use subject alias options for your reports by programming it on DFpref and DFpref pref info edit check function within, and now it's supported within DFcollect. And when you're looking at your listings, you'll be able to see the whole subject alias. Thank you.
Thanks, Busi. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to take you through some general updates on the desktop tools, the server, and the API. So we have a bit of an updated look for the DFdiscover reports. As a refreshed look, you can have an updated header, which includes the study logo up in the top. We have the option panel now opening above the report, and we have improved usability on the tablets and phones in DFweb. As Busi mentioned, we now have multi-language eCRFs, and the nice thing is you no longer need to create a CRF background for each one of them. What you do need to do is work in the translation dialog box in DF setup. What it does is it pulls in all of the prompts, the helps, and the instructions, puts them in alphabetical order, and then you can manually add rows if you need to. You use the language button to specify the available languages and rename the default language. And then the uses column, which is really great, it restricts what's translated and where it's translated. So you can specify the translation and then what plates they apply to. And as Busi also mentioned, in the preference section, you can specify your language to display. You can also do that using the DFpref function. The updated language will be impacted on the dashboard, data view, list view, and in the reports. And it's all based on the languages set up in the translation table that we just showed on the last slide. For CRF to eCRF tables, we have some enhanced designs in DF Explorer. One is the column width. So you can now specify a percentage of the column width for each column. If you happen to have one or two that you want longer than others. If the width is not specified, the remaining table width is divided equally among the columns. For the fields and the headings, you can now align them left, center, or right. And you can now add background colors to the rows, columns, or individual cells. The default color is defined in the DF Explorer preferences. We have an enhanced edit check search function now. You can put in the title of your edit check in the search bar, and it will cut it down to the list of edit checks that have that name in it. So it definitely takes less time to search for a certain edit check if you need to find it now. It searches across all edit check source files and will pull up the ones that have that name in it. Our edit check dialog box has enhanced usability. It allows for scrolling if the contents inside are too long. And you can also now copy and paste the information in the dialog box. So for edit check dialogs that are affected are listed here: DF warning, DF error, DF display, DF ask, and DF capture. The schedule view has an update to the filters. We also now display no more than 3,000 subjects at once to improve the speed for larger studies. The filters, you can put a starting subject and a limit up to 3,000 of how many you want to see in descending order. So for example, if you want to start with subject 1 and then limit 50 subjects, it will give you the subjects 1 through 50 in all the reports. So in 5.6.0, we added sublabels, which are great. And now you have the ability to view and export the sublabels for SDTM creation. You can show the sublabels in place of the labels in list view. As you can see on the side here, the diagrams, the first top one is list view and the bottom one is your preferences. And this is also available via DF export and DF SAS as well. We also now have the option to set a minimum version to ensure the end users are using the appropriate client app versions. It also enforces the use of new features and bug fixes. You specify the earliest minor version where your user is allowed to connect. And now you can configure it for all the studies on the server if you have a master tab or per individual study on the studies tab. We have a new function called query category role restriction. It's a limited release, meaning right now it's only going to be available to the people who use the DFnet servers. In the future, it will be released for all, but for now it's just for DFnet server users. It's a restriction role. So based on what role you are, it tells what query categories you can use. It applies to manual queries only, it has no impact on the edit checks. And again, as I said, it works on the DFnet hosted servers only in this release. So here's an example. For the monitor role, we want the monitor anytime they add a query to have the query category of monitor. So in DFadmin, under the new restrictions tab, you will put under the C and D, which are create and delete, all of the other categories. So you put the ones you don't want them to be able to use. So for example, our query category would be code 30. In this example, we don't want them to create queries 1 through 29 or 31 through 35. So by doing that, in the picture below, you can see when they go to add a manual query, the only option available to them is monitor. Everything else is grayed out. And so this can be added for any role and based on any query category you create. And again, currently only for DFnet hosted servers. And eventually it'll be available for everyone. Our documentation has a new look. It's currently updated for DF Web, DF Collect, DF Send, and the barcoding documents. It's a nicer, cleaner look, nice navigation on the left-hand side, and we will be updating all other guides and manuals in future releases. And then some additional updates. We have some new reports in DF Explorer and DF Web, a subject and CRS status overview, query overview, subject summary, and data entry and query metrics. For DF SAS and DF Explorer, we have the option to now enforce role permissions, and that's enabled by default, but can be disabled for backwards compatibility. The CDISC ODM XML study data and metadata are now available via API. DF version now provides a version of DFWS API as well as other applications. And the ATK now includes the optional module for DF Engage. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. All right, so we'll finish up just to talk through the upgrade process before we get to the Q&A. For those of you who are hosted on a DFnet server, so hosted 1 or ZAF, we upgraded the server on October 21st. You would have heard about that already. So you can access the documentation and the client app installers on our website. You will have seen the link in the notifications you received. For those of you who are on self-managed DFdiscover servers, you can access your installers and documentation under My Account, under the Software Releases section you can see on the right there. And if you do have any questions or need any support along with your preparing for your upgrade, you can contact us at help@dfnetresearch.com. We have both DF Web and DFWS are our public-facing instances of DF Web and the API. Those were both updated on October the 14th. If you have your own self-hosted DF Web or self-hosted API, let us know if you need any help getting that installed and ready to go. DF Collect is always released through the app stores, and so that was updated on September 29th. If you currently have any users who have had 5.6 installed, if they have auto updates enabled for DF Collect, they'll just get the new version once it's available. Otherwise, they can manually update when they're ready. So version compatibility, we want to consider how when you're upgrading your server and your API and when you're using the upgraded client applications, or if you're using older client applications on a newer server and vice versa. So there's some things to consider. If your server and your API is on version 5.7 and your client application is 5.7, you're all good. All your features are available. You'll get all the cool new stuff we talked about today, with the exception of the limited release query category restrictions if you're not on a DFnet server. If you are using a newer DFdiscover server and API with older client applications, or you're using an older server with newer client applications, there are restrictions as to what new features will be available. So you'll first want to make sure that your DFadmin version strict setting is set to all minor versions or to the new minimum version option that Carolyn talked about. And just be aware that the new features that we've added that require server support or require client-side support won't be available depending on which version you're using. So something to keep in mind. A lot of the details around what's supported and what the new features are versus enhancements are explained in the release notes. We have a bit of a new format for this release. We have PDF files and a separate Excel file. So the PDFs cover all of the new features and the enhancements. They have more details on the upgrade process, known issues, and advanced notices about changes coming in future versions. And we have 3 separate PDFs for that. So the first one is for DFdiscover for the desktop server and API, and then 2 separate ones for DFweb and DFcollect each. The Excel listing, on the other hand, will have all changes to all of the products all in one place. And so that includes bug fixes as well as known issues. So the PDF doesn't go into detail around the bug fixes. Those are all available within the Excel file. So we're hoping that that format will kind of give you the information in a more digestible way in the PDF, but also give you a really organized way at looking at all the changes through the Excel listing. So of course, if you need any support with your upgrade, or if you have any questions about the new features, please contact the support team at help@dfnetresearch.com. Today we only really had time to really cover the highlights and give you a taste of what the new version offers. So if you are looking for additional training in the new versions, please contact info@dfnetresearch.com to get that set up for you.